Hello, hello. Welcome to Think Lab number 7.
Hello.
Happy
Good
Monday,
morning.
everyone.
Happy Monday.
Why don't we go around the room, introduce ourselves? I'll start. Dave Lilja, Think Minnesota Realty.
David Lilia.
Uh,
I am Dominic Sisley, also think Minnesota Realty. Hello, Dominic. And I am Michael Stanton with Lakes Sotheby's International Realty in Minneapolis.
So, how was the week of real estate, you guys?
It was good. I think we're starting to get out of. We had that Arctic blast, which I think people were just huddling inside for a few days. But as soon as that subsided, I felt like I immediately noticed people wanting to go see properties again. I hosted an open house yesterday. We had a good turnout, so I feel like the winter blues are fading away.
Michael, how about you?
Wow, good for you. Um, well, I had a closing this morning. I had a pre-sign last week for the seller because I represented the seller, and it was a condominium that we sold over in Little Canada. It actually officially closed this morning, but I was talking with a colleague of mine on Sunday who was in multiple offers over in St. Paul in Highland Park, and they ended up going like $50,000 over asking price and an escalation clause. And so that's a pretty big indicator that things might be starting to heat up pretty quick.
Yeah, we are seeing lots of showings. We're seeing multiple offers. We're seeing offers on properties that have been sitting. My Zillow calls on Friday were bonkers.
Really
Yeah. So that to me kind of shows you that people are surfing the web. There was some potentials there, but I felt like Friday in particular was really strong. I didn't have any calls over the weekend, but
interesting.
Friday was really
But I
strong.
have to make it, but I have to specify about the 50,000 over. I don't know how the property was originally priced because sometimes agents will price it so low to then get all these offers and say it sold for 50,000 over ask. So I don't know if it was priced at market or slightly below, or if it was priced for this, you know, this massive multiple offer situation. Because personally, I don't want to see 25 offers come in. I just don't want that many. But
I think pricing
Dominic,
is an interesting topic. We were talking about it within our brokerage. We've got a group chat, and I think a lot of agents are experiencing the same thing. If a property is really priced well, there are buyers out there who are willing to go look at it, maybe make an offer, multiple offers. The open house I was at yesterday, anecdotally, the couple that was there shared with me that they've had their eye on this property for some time. The sellers just did a price drop, and we did the open house, and it brought them out. So they came out to look at the property. So I feel like
interesting.
that is I feel like there's more price is always important obviously, but I feel like even maybe more important in the current market to really get alignment on that so that all sides are feeling motivated to get a deal done.
Yeah, I think pricing is really, really, really important. And we all know overpricing a house is the kiss of death. And, you know, what's the point of severely, severely underpricing it? Because it just makes it harder for everybody to even know how to go in. And my personal opinion is to price it at market value or slightly below. But yeah, so I don't know how many dollars below official market it was because she didn't mention anything about any kind of an appraisal gap coverage. And so when you go that far over an ask, you have to make sure that it's going to appraise unless they're paying cash. So anyway, it's the nuances of our fun life in real estate.
Yeah, I was Dominic heard this. I had ran an errand Friday, Western suburbs, open house sign. I thought, oh, I'll just go Friday, 12:30, odd time. I pulled up and it was absolutely insane. The vol
Really?
the volume of cars. I parked, I walked up, the volume of shoes outside, the volume of shoes inside. It
Wow.
was one of those.
houses that was kind of segmented. It wasn't a colonial, but it was kind of like all these like sub rooms.
Hmm.
It reminded me of COVID, where you felt
Mm,
like you never had a room to yourself. There was always a looky-loo coming from room to room.
hmm.
There was people there with young kids. There was people there with parents.
Hmm.
I counted maybe 15 sets of buyers.
Hmm.
They had gone on the market Wednesday night, I think she said. They
How
had
much was it? What was the price point?
600s.
Okay.
Just for the privateness of the listing agent. Wasn't my listing. I just want to be a little vague. They had had multiple offers, 34 showings, and there was, like I said, probably 15 people at this open house. And
Hmm.
it was flashbacks to COVID where people were just lined up right after coming out of COVID, where you put a house on and people were just lined up. It felt like it was a Saturday. My initial thought when I pulled up was the suburb that I'm in did not have school Friday. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's just people are out and about. I didn't see anyone that was there with kids of school age. They were
Hmm.
either like infants being, in the car seat. Um, I was stunned at the volume of people that were out looking at this house.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good for sellers.
And
That is
buyers.
good for
Hmm.
sellers.
Yeah, and buyers.
And
They're out and they're looking and they're in the process and um so yeah. So we're gonna start a new segment for the show. Um
okay.
we're gonna kind of call it questions from clients or questions from contacts that we had for the week. Dominic and I were talking earlier and he brought up a question. I thought, well, that's interesting. Then I had one. So Dominic, do you want to start and share the question and maybe your insights and see what Mike or I would have answered as well?
Yeah. So I got a good question. I'm working with a couple and their family. They're looking to upgrade their home, and they're going to need to finance a portion of their purchase. So he was trying to get my thoughts on types of lenders they should be considering and kind of the nuances between should we be looking at a credit union versus a bank or going to a broker, and why would I suggest one or the other if it were me in their shoes, or who might I recommend? So just kind of made me think, because we work with a lot of folks, and different lending types can fit different needs. They're looking at a pretty standard residential home, maybe with a few acres, so nothing really out of the ordinary. So they don't need maybe the range or depth of products someone might need if they're doing some sort of complicated loan transaction. So for me, my kind of guidance to them was like, it really depends on the type of purchase, so we kind of know what you're looking at. So as far as institutions go, with a credit union, knowing that they might not have the range of products some banks might offer or brokers might be able to tap into, given their kind of stance in the market, but you might get a little bit more aggressive rate. They might be able to help you out if you're a member of that credit union. There might be a little bit of a better interest rate potentially if you're looking at a 30-year fixed, or even maybe some ARM products. Um, the key knowing they keep those loans in house, less middlemen, so maybe there's some cost savings there, and that's why they can do that. And then I think from there, just the range of product options goes up when you start to look at other, maybe a bank versus a broker. And so, I think for them, it really came down to preference in terms of the type of institution. They wanted to stay with a local bank, maybe not a big national bank, because just for whatever reason they're involved in the community. They they have accounts with this bank already. It may make sense, versus a broker where you're going to go through and look at a lot of different mortgage options. They're going to sell that loan at the end of the day. They're not really invested in the deal outside of just matching you with the right product and fit, and then kind of moving on to the next client. So for them, I think it came down to the care that they're going to receive, that personal touch, and just their, at the end of the day, what's going to be best for their pocketbook. But that was kind of I think it was a good line of questioning and a good place to start when you're thinking about, what are my financing options, and where should I go to have these conversations?
Michael, what do you think?
What was my question of the week?
No, well, any feedback for Dominic before your question? Otherwise, I can go. I have a question too.
Well, my feedback is, I personally, um, try to guide the seller or the buyers that I'm working with when they start asking about lending, away from large banks because they typically, what I've learned over the years is they typically have products that they want to, that they offer, where a broker, such as, I don't know, I'm just like Bell Bank, for example, or New American Funding, or a bank like, a lender like that will offer different. They're brokers, so they have different investors that have different opportunities for people. Um, I like that a little bit better. I had an experience because I do think they get better options. But when people ask me, like, what's the rates? Well, like, I don't know. It depends. How much do you make? How long have you had your job? What's your credit score? Those are the things that I don't get involved in. So nobody's going to get the same rate no matter what because it's different circumstances. Um, but I had a situation just last summer where we had a big bank. And the big bank couldn't, in the 11th hour, say that they could do what they initially promised they were going to do because it was a condo and they couldn't, come through with the timeline that they originally promised the buyer they were going to come through with, which is consistent with me because I've never had an on-time closing with this particular big bank anyway. So then we diverted. I'm like, just try this source, which was what I just got done explaining, like the broker, like a New American Funding or a Bell Bank. Not only did they promise that they were going to get it closed, and they were like, the pinch hitter. We were down within a week. Um, he also got a better rate. And when we emailed the original person from the big bank, they was like, "Oh, I don't want to lose them as a client. Well, I can offer them this rate." And my buyer was like, "You mean you didn't offer me the best rate the first time around?" So buyers beware. It's very important to shop around for lenders, and it doesn't affect your credit score because that's what consumer protection is. So that would be my opinion on that conversation.
Yeah, I mentioned those three: banks, credit unions, brokers.
Hmm.
I usually ask them to check with one of every category.
Hmm.
Hmm.
People are at a bank, start with your bank. If you're at a
Hmm.
credit union, go talk to a bank. If you're at a bank, go talk to a credit union. And then I always give them a list of three brokers.
Hmm.
One of the
Yeah.
biggest things that I like is not all bank people or credit union people work evenings and weekends.
Hmm.
Some of them are Monday through Friday, maybe the Saturday.
Hmm.
So much of our business is weekends and evenings.
And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
those brokers, those Bell Banks and New American Fundings and places like that, they will take the agent's call evenings, weekends, mornings, holidays. It's a whole different ball
Yep.
game
Yeah,
Yep.
in
that's a
my
huge.
in
Yeah.
my experience.
Yep. No, I
In
agree.
fact, every Friday I get emails and texts from certain lenders that are like, I'm available all weekend. If you need something, please reach out. We always are here for your call. I don't get those emails from big banks
Yep. No, I
ever.
agree.
Yeah, 100%.
Mike, any question to share? Otherwise, I got mine teed up.
The question that I got over the week was right in line with our podcast from last week in terms of market preparation. And it kind of fell into a financing thing. It's like, we want to sell our house. We're going to be building a brand new property down in the southern part of the state, kind of Red Wing-ish area, Wabasha, Frontenac. Um, and what do we need to do to get our house ready? I'd like you to come over and take a look at it. Um, so they were asking about market prep. And at the same time, they were just like, and we don't know when the best time to put the house on the market would be, if it's going to sell quickly. So A lot of it is has to do with um, market preparation, like what do we need to do to get this house ready to sell? And when you're building, you have more of a complication because of when the house is done. And they were asking about, construction loans and timing. And that's when I was like, listen, talk to a lender, talk about construction loans because they're going to tell you the best way to do it. And sometimes you can have one closing and then we'll just kind of work backwards. But if you don't want to move twice, then um, that would be my best suggestion was to work backwards from the lender with the construction loan. But at the same time, there's nothing fun and there's nothing easy about selling your house, especially when you're building a new one because you don't know about construction timelines and if there's going to be a back order on something. So, buckle up. You're making a big lifetime move and I'll be here to support you through it, but we can't plan it out exactly because that's not how it works. That was my question.
Yeah. Any comments on that, Dominic?
I feel like, that situation, not the exact with the new build, but, when people are trying to time buying and selling, in kind of, that the same time frame, I always, give similar advice to folks. Like it's very important to get your house on the market and ready to be sold, if not under contract, before you start going to look for something else, so that those things can all fall into place. So, yeah, I think that's a common question and something that, most people haven't done multiple times. And if they did it, maybe it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so it's kind of just re-remembering, what are those steps I need to take to facilitate this and make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were spot on your answer there, Michael, that new build is such a can of worms. And unless you have a place to go, uh,
Mhm.
that timing is ever important. So I think that's great. I don't do a lot of new construction. I do enough to stay in the loop of them, but that would be my experience too. So, my question was, I'm going to preface my question. Dominic and I have spent a lot of time about like lead generating and all these topics we should be ready to go. And it was great because this I get a text and the question shows that we, I think, as agents sometimes overthink the process. And there's questions out there that I think if we are doing our job, the door is open, they are comfortable asking. The question was simply this: I'm interested in selling my house, but I was told from somebody I work with that I can't sell my house because I have a mortgage. Is this true? And I thought it was such a great question.
God,
I thought it was such a
sorry
great,
for laughing, but that's insanity. What people get from other people.
right.
Wow. I
But
can't sell my house because I have a mortgage.
I thought it was such a great question again because it's one that wouldn't have been on my radar. And so I spent a lot of time explaining how a payoff works, how before she lists her house, she should have a net sheet. She should be looking at what we think her house would sell for, what her current mortgage is, how that process is done, how she works with the title company to arrange for getting the payoff amount, how it's taken care of at closing. And I also spent some time explaining the equity. Like whatever your walk away money is, that's money that goes to you and you can use that however you want. Yes, you're going to have tax implications, but you can put that into a new house. You can put it in your checking book. You can go on vacation. But it was something that, I don't think that I've been asked that in 14 years about
I
that.
mean,
Just
wow.
it kind of just over. I've been spending a lot of times on our new CRM, and there's all these templates like send them this, send them that, and it was like there wasn't something about just that premise that you have a mortgage, can you sell?
Yes, you can sell. Absolutely, you can sell. I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing about it is like maybe back in there were times, and who knows? That's why I always suggest people when they say they want to buy something and they talk to me, I'm like, have you spoken to a lender yet? Step number one, talk to your lender because maybe they bought their property at a certain time when they quote unquote overpaid for it. Maybe they are upside down. So when they sell their property, they don't have enough funds to pay off their mortgage. That's that's the lender and the seller. Not everybody has cash to bring to close to sell. That's pretty rare these days, I would say, but you can always sell your house when you have a mortgage. And if you're upside down, sometimes people will still be willing to bring cash to close from their savings or whatever to get out of a property. And people always ask me, when's the best time to sell? When you want to, when you need to.
So you
There
to
is
your
no
point about
best.
like equity, part and parcel to that. How often do you guys recommend or introduce the idea of like a 1031 exchange to clients who are, are buying and selling something on selling something and then buying something on the other side of it, but maybe they don't have a house just yet picked out.
Those usually go with investment properties, from what I understand. That's not really my wheelhouse. It just means, the best of my knowledge, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they need to reinvest that money into another property within X amount of time or they're going to get taxed on it.
Correct. Yeah. I haven't
Yeah.
had it really. I had someone ask me about it a while ago, and I don't think it ended up making sense for them for their situation. But I was just curious, given, like, is that something that you guys encounter often, if ever?
Not
Yeah,
me.
I get asked about them and I do have clients that do them. So my first thing is they need tax help,
Hmm.
need an attorney. A 1031 has to be done with an attorney, or all the ones that I've had, they were told they needed an attorney. There's too many tax implications if you're doing a primary residence to a primary residence. Um, you know, most, I agree with Mike, most of the ones that I've had are some type of investment property, but the terminology gets too, I think it can change too fast. What is considered
Hmm.
like property is a single family home and a condo. Well, there's gray areas there where I've had attorneys say that can work. Even though it's a condo, it's still a primary residence and it's not a single family. I've had people look at raw land. I mean, I've done a little bit of everything of them. Um, but the timing of it becomes important. There's certain dates. That's where the attorney has to come in. You have to identify three properties. You
Hmm.
have one under contract, and you have to have a close date. Um, the money, any proceeds from selling your first property, go to the attorney's escrow fund because they hold it, and so it's just a whole different process. It's a little more expensive. So I would always have them talk to their attorney, number one, and talk to their accountant, number two.
Smart.
Yeah. But I mean, we do them. But like I said, and what's interesting, it's a small fraction of attorneys that do 1031s. Not every attorney will do one. So if you have an attorney, that attorney may not do one. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. But
And
I
for
do
me, that's kind of what I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, David.
no, I would that was it.
Um, that's there's certain things that like in our fiduciary responsibilities, the R is reasonable care. And yes, I'm licensed. Yes. Can I technically do a 1031 exchange? Yes. Have I ever done one? No. Would it be in the best interest of of the client for me to represent them? I don't know. Is it
Hmm.
is it the best reasonable care for me to do something with the client that I have no blanket idea what's going on? And
Right.
that is when I'm like, I know people in the business that's their business model. They do investment properties, duplexes, 1031 exchanges all day long. And I'm like, I have a great person that I can refer you to, and you can have that person help you. And that's kind of me. my
Well,
thought
I think
process.
for us, I don't think I did one in 2024. Now that I think about it, that might have been my first year. I have a lot of clients that have attorneys that want to
Hmm.
review things. And when I mean I didn't do any last year, that I know that an attorney was, well, no, that's not true. Scratch that. I did have one. Um, I always talk to the client when they say, "Do I need my attorney?" I always advise them, yes. If you have an attorney, feel free. And I say the difference between the attorney and me is one, they went to school a lot longer than I did. Number two is they're going to charge you by the hour. I don't charge by the hour. I do think that a client, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, they can use an attorney and an agent, a
Hmm.
realtor, on their behalf. I can do up all the paperwork. I can do all the logistical stuff. I can draft everything up, but before the client signs, the attorney reviews. And I've had people that go, "This looks great. You're good to
Hmm.
go." Or "I don't like this language, tweak this." Great. Their cost, the client cost, is severely less because they're not using the attorney. Um, we had an example last year. The contract for deed situation has changed. Some title companies are not doing contract for deeds right now. They are not writing the deed.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
there's
never done one of those either.
there's a now that I think about it, I think we had three or four attorneys last year. That's funny. I already forgot them all. And we worked with a title company. We did all the paperwork. We did everything up. We then sent it to an attorney. The attorney drafted the deed, reviewed everything, sent it back. So the attorney was only involved in the process for a short time. The rest of it was done through the title and myself.
I
So
have
it
to
was a
share.
great
Can
bridge.
I share a story about an attorney?
Is it good?
Yeah, I think it's
All
fabulous.
right, go ahead.
So I was
No
helping
sucky
some,
stories.
well, no, I mean, no, it's fabulous. I had several years ago, um, a buyer that I was representing, and I would draw up the paperwork for the purchase agreement. I mean, it was one house, but every time I sent this buyer a purchase agreement, it always got sent by her to her attorney for review. I mean, every amendment, every addendum, when we went through inspection, every single thing. And finally, I actually got a call from the attorney. And he said to me, and I am going to paraphrase, but it was like, I needed to talk to you because I don't understand why she keeps sending me this. She goes, in all reality, I don't know anything about real estate, contracts, amendments, addendums, negotiations for inspections. He says, I don't know why. He goes, I'm going to defer to you all the time. And so not every real, not every attorney deals with real estate. Um, so this person
Well,
was spending an enormous amount of money. And then in
right.
the end, that attorney was like, but I need you to answer some questions because I don't know. And so we did, but he was like, this is kind of silly because I can't advise her, yet I'm billing her. And I'm like, that's kind of an issue between you and her.
Right.
But
I mean,
I mean,
I've only worked
I
with
know it's just kind of like,
I've only dealt with real estate attorneys, so they have
yeah.
more knowledge base, but what they're not typically familiar with is our forms.
Hmm.
Right? Their purchase
And
agreement is completely done different,
right.
obviously.
And the Minnesota form is so different from the Wisconsin form because Wisconsin, instead of overseeing the realtors with the Department of Commerce, like in the state of Minnesota, over in Wisconsin, the realtors were overseen by the bar. So our forms over there are very, 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 very legal. I mean, the way the lawyers will figure things out, like striking and this and that. But it was interesting. And that also parlays like when you go into like um, an issue post-closing within those 24 months post-closing, if there's an issue, if you can agree upon something between the two parties, that's probably the best. Because if you end up going to even mediation or even to court, I mean, 9 out of 10 times I've been told that the judge that's going to hear this case, they don't know anything about real estate either. So I always t advise my people, um, if there is something, let's just do our hardest effort, best effort to just come to a resolution like adults, you know? So,
All right, ready for rapid fire? We haven't done rapid
yeah,
fire.
yeah,
Do it.
Okay,
let's do it.
we get a less than a minute per um
For answer,
answer. Okay.
do you have your timer going, David? You love your timers.
Yeah, your little
Do you
sand
have your
timer.
little sand things?
All right, there it is.
Oh,
There it is.
he's got his little sand things. All
Okay,
right.
Dominic,
All
you're
right.
first.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Favorite house you've ever shown to a client?
Favorite house I've ever shown to a client. Um, it's a good question. I have a client that's looking for really remote properties. And we went and saw a property that's like way, way off the beaten path, and it had its own private lake. So the property had its own very large lake that was, a couple the lake was maybe 20 to 30 acres, but the property itself was a couple hundred acres with a really picturesque house with great windows and a great view. It was just an awesome setting, but there was one giant pullback for them, but they didn't want to go with it because there was a someone had an easement that went right next to the house to the neighboring property, and they could tell that people were going back and forth constantly on four-wheelers and snowmobiles and stuff. So they were like, no, not going to do that. So the property kind of screwed itself because they had this easement that went right next to the house.
Mike, favorite house?
My favorite house was a property that I just got under contract, and it was a historical property built in 1907 by a very famous Minnesota architect, Clarence Johnston, who also was the person that designed and built Glen Sheen Condo Mansion up in Duluth. What was cool about it was that it was mostly intact. You got to see a lot of really cool stuff from that era, even some old gas lights that were just there for homage when they were converting over to electricity. But just the gilded area of the property and the education that I got from working with the historical property.
Very cool. All right.
Was that inside the sand?
Oh yeah, you did it.
Okay.
What about you? Do you have I'm sure you've seen a
The
housing
favorite
property.
one that I ever showed was actually one on Superior out of Grand Marais. It wasn't that the house was terrific, which it was. It was the physical nature of the property that was just dog friendly, swim friendly, kayak friendly, user friendly. It was, it fit all the boxes to me. I mean, I've shown some award-winning houses on Superior that are death defying. I mean, if you have a dog, I would never let the dog off. It's a 100-foot cliff,
Mm.
right down into the rocks. But that would be mine. So, all right, we'll start with Michael. Michael,
Yep, yep, yep.
you had to leave Minnesota and you
Yes.
had to move to a state, not to work, but to just live and retire. What state?
I I would go to California.
Wow. All right, Dominic.
Um, Good question. I think I would go to. I've always been drawn to like Wyoming, like having a big ranch.
Okay. We'll start with Dominic. Dominic, if you had or got to sell your ideal property, whether it was price, location, style, anything, what would you like and where? Would you like to sell a ranch in Wyoming, for example, or what would you want to do?
Uh, I, my favorite properties to tour and work with are lake properties. So I would probably choose like a really picturesque lake property that's kind of remote, set back in the woods.
Okay, Mike?
My favorite property now, after dealing with that really cool Clarence Johnston property down in Red Wing, would be another just amazing Clarence Johnston property up on the Summit Hill, Crocus Hill area of St. Paul. Or if it wasn't Clarence Johnston, Cass Gilbert, because that was the other architect that came in from New York and So I really took a shine, you might say, to these elegant, um, older luxury properties built in the early part of the turn of the century.
I would want to sell something with thousands of acres.
Look at you. We are all
Mhm.
so different.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
the most I've sold in one transaction it was 700 acres. So I'm
Dang.
getting there. Um,
Hmm.
there's not a lot of 700 acres in Minnesota, but
Wow.
yeah, I would want to do something probably out west just because of the volume of acreage.
Hmm.
I think it'd be absolutely awesome to pair up with somebody, take a helicopter ride to go see the western part or the northern part or whatever of the property.
You
Um,
should get your license in Colorado. Colorado is another area that's really, really growing with people. Um,
yeah, I
and
think
back in our old big box brokerage days, you were part of the ranch division.
I was. I was the reason they started it there.
I re
At our
I
at
I
our
didn't know that.
location,
Unknown
remember.
facts.
not
Wasn't it called Farm and Ranch?
yep,
Yeah, I remember that.
yep. So
That's how you and I got connected.
when I do go to that office, they have the sign still outside, so I'll just
Yeah.
it.
But they don't do that anymore because you took it with you to your new
Yeah,
brokerage
anyways. All
because
right,
that's
last
your gig.
question. Last
Whoa.
for rapid fire.
Okay.
Last movie you watched.
Oh man, what did we watch? My kids and I just got done watching the original Mighty Ducks movie.
Oh, funny. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's the movie that made my daughter want to play hockey. Her eyes got big as saucers when she was like 6 years old. I'm
That's
like,
funny.
I
It was
did
timely
it.
with the as you've seen on the pond hockey we've got going up here at the house.
Yes, I
'Cause
know.
we're in that mode, so they wanted to,
I
I got a
know.
movie for you. I
I
haven't seen
know.
that in ages. It was fun to watch again.
Okay, mine is it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Hidden Figures. And it's the movie about the women. Um, and they were mostly African American women in the early NASA days
Oh yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
did hand mathematical
Mm.
calculations for what they called go, no go zone for when that capsule was going to come back into the Earth's atmosphere and splash down. Remember splash down, us old guys, when they would just like a rock just fall right into the ocean. And they were just starting to bring in this, the IBM supercomputer that our phones have more power than that thing. But it's an absolutely amazing movie. I think it's a must watch for people.
That's great.
Hidden Figures.
All right. Anything else?
Brilliant, brilliant women.
All right. Well, okay. Speaking of movies, all right. What's the
Yeah.
one movie people would be surprised you haven't seen?
Me,
Yeah, sure. Start with you.
um, Tommy boy.
Okay.
I think
Alan?
that's what you call it.
I've never seen Dumb and Dumber.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
I'm so judgy.
Yeah.
You're probably better off because you hadn't seen it.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. That's all I got for today. Anyone
That's
else?
it?
That's it. Nice and short
Oh,
today.
I want to know what movie you hadn't seen. No, you're not getting off the hook that fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, can I preface it?
Sure.
I don't watch movies.
Oh,
I
stop. Like
no, I don't.
so
Like
really, so
there's so
really
many,
you've
but
not
I did
seen
watch
any
one.
movies.
I did watch one the other day, Real Pain.
That
Um,
sounds uplifting.
it was really good. It was really good. I'm terrible with famous people. I'm terrible. It's the guy that was in Succession, one of the not
Okay.
Macaulay Culkin, Kieran Culkin,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Jesse, somebody.
the other Culkin.
Um, I literally probably watch one movie a year. I mean, in terms of like what movie, there's so
Okay,
many.
so what movie would people be surprised that you haven't seen?
Miracle on 34th, Wizard of Oz, all the classics.
Stop it.
I
Yeah.
don't watch movies. I
Oh my
don't
Lord.
watch Disney. Like we've always joked in our family that if we were on like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, chances are if it was history, politics, whatever, I could get it. My Achilles heel would be any Disney thing. I would be like, I'm so
So you
sorry.
don't know who the Ice Princess is from the movie Frozen.
Yeah, that was what's her name? Not
Yeah,
Dora.
that's
Elsa.
The
there you
blonde
go.
girl.
You
What's her
ran out of
name?
time.
Wasn't her name
Dominic just said it.
Elsa.
Elsa? See, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Eh.
I
All
don't.
right.
I don't watch them. So
You
peace, everyone.
guys are awesome.
Good to
And
see you guys.
thank you.
Go
Talk to you
sell
later.
something.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.